So, free will versus fate. This is a really big question, and I think you could learn a lot about someone's personal philosophy through the way they answer this question. The way you answer this question shows how you see the universe and how you think you should interact with the universe. And I'm going to take a more scientific approach to explaining what I believe, because I don't want to be tied to cultural beliefs or just any specific philosophy that I adhere to. Um, I'll give some scientific views of both, and then I'm gonna tell you what I believe. So, a deterministic view of the universe, or fate, believing in fate, uh, is a really popular idea. And, there's a lot of reason for it. People like to think that everything happens in sequence and that there's a reason, a central reason behind that sequence. And there's a lot of debate between whether there's a person that, said the way it's going to be, or if that's just the nature of the universe to go in sequence and to have a single, I guess, determined purpose. Purpose really isn't the right word, but I'll stick with it. Um, so there's a lot that it implies if you believe that in a deterministic view of the universe. One thing is that by looking at the patterns in nature, in the universe, you can determine fate. You can determine the direction that fate is going in. And we use this in science today, just for little things. If we want to send a rocket to the moon, we know how far we have to go and how much energy we have to use, and we expect it to act in the way that we know it's going to act, and we use math to do that. And that makes sense, and it works. But in a bigger picture kind of way, if we knew every single variable and the way it interacts with every other variable in the entire universe, we could determine anything. In fact, we could determine everything all at once. And that's a big idea. And so we're trying to figure that out. But maybe the universe doesn't work like that. Maybe there are some things that can't be determined. There are some variables that don't exist. Maybe the universe works randomly and that some things have free will. In fact, there were some experiments called the double slit experiment, and we redo this experiment every few years just because it's so crazy, and we do it with different things, different particles. And basically in this experiment, I'll put a link in the description below so you can look at it in more detail. But in the experiment, basically, scientists found out that particles like electrons and photons and atoms, small scale things, act as if they have free will. You can't determine where they're going regardless of what force you put on it. And that's pretty crazy. It doesn't work the way we're used to. So Einstein believed that that was just a mess up. He believed that there were other variables at work that we couldn't see. And maybe that's true. But he believed that we had the illusion of free will by looking at these particles, but in truth, you could determine everything in the universe, like fate. But other people believe that things in the universe can't be determined in that way, that some things are basically still up for grabs. In fact, there was a strange part of that experiment when we looked at the particle acting with free will. It acted as if it didn't have free will. And that's because the photons we shot at it, which are light particles, when we turned the light on to look at the way this particle is acting, the photons basically made it act normal. It made it act as if you could determine where it was going. People that advocate for free will believe that since we're made of particles that act with free will, we only have the illusion that we can determine where things are going. And that really you can only determine the probability of things, the probability of a particle acting one way. In fact, we have a way of determining the way a particle will act normally when we look at it, by canceling out opposite probabilities. I'll put a link below for if you want to read more about that. So how do we apply these things to ourselves? I personally believe in free will. I think whether free will is an illusion or not, I think we should act like we have free will. And this is important because if you act like you have no control over your life, that there's something else controlling you that has the puppet strings, whether it's just nature or whether there's a god or many gods, just telling you what to do, and that you don't exist, yourself doesn't exist, I think you're going to lead a really, I guess, helpless existence. And that's just my opinion. You can certainly disagree in the comments if you're someone else on YouTube. But that's the way I see it. I think it's a much more rewarding experience to act like you have free will, whether it's an illusion or not. So that's my opinion on free will. I hope that helps you, Gina, in your assignments. And I hope this isn't too late. It's 9:03 p.m. I've been procrastinating. I've been out on the town. So yeah, I'm going to edit this a little bit now. I'll see you guys on Easter maybe. I don't know what you guys are up to.